You know that feeling when you're about to set up a video call and you're suddenly hit with the question, is this the right gear or am I just throwing money away on something that will look like a grainy mess? I get it. The last thing you want is to spend a decent chunk on a conference camera that ends up looking like a low-budget webcam, especially when the meeting is with clients or your whole team. That hesitation is exactly what makes me want to break down whether the Logitech Rally Bar 4K really earns its price tag for the kind of work you do. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the environment where you'll actually be using this thing. I've seen a lot of people try to repurpose a typical webcam for boardroom meetings, home offices, or small conference rooms, and they quickly run into problems. The camera can't keep everyone in frame, it struggles in dim lighting. And the audio is just an afterthought. The Rally Bar is built as an all-in-one solution, so you don't have to hunt down a separate mic, a lighting rig, or a complicated software suite. Everything you need is tucked into that sleek, rectangular bar that can be mounted on a wall or placed on a tabletop. It's the kind of plug-and-play promise that sounds great until you actually pull the plug. Ease of use is where the Rally Bar starts to separate itself from the pack. When you power it up, there's no maze of menus to navigate. The bar automatically detects the dominant speaker and shifts the frame using Logitech's RightSight technology. In my own trial, I set up a quick 30-minute brainstorming session with 3 colleagues spread across a room. As each person spoke, the camera smoothly panned to keep them centered, and the transition felt natural, not a jerky, delayed motion that you might get from a cheaper motorized lens. That kind of intelligent framing is a real time saver. You can forget about manually adjusting the view or asking someone to move a little left. Autofocus confidence is another practical point. Some cameras hunt for focus every few seconds, making the screen flicker between blurry and sharp. The Rally Bar uses a laser-based autofocus system that locks onto subjects within a second and stays locked, even if someone steps forward or backward a foot or two. In a real-world scenario where you might be standing up to point at a whiteboard, the focus never wavered. That stability matters when you're presenting data and you don't want your audience squinting at a fuzzy chart. Low-light behavior often trips up video solutions that look great in a bright office, but turn into a night vision nightmare after hours. The Rally Bar's 4K sensor is paired with a wide aperture and an algorithm that lifts shadows without overexposing highlights. I tested it in a conference room with only the overhead fluorescent lights on, and the picture stayed crisp enough to read slide text without needing a separate lamp. It won't replace a purpose-built lighting kit in a dim studio, but for the typical office or home office setting, it gives you a usable image without the grain that cheaper 1080p cameras spew. Stabilization isn't usually a selling point for a fixed bar, but the internal image processing does a subtle smoothing of any micro vibrations. Think of the slight wobble that can happen when the mounting bracket is a bit loose. The result is a video that feels steady, even when the bar is mounted on a wall that isn't perfectly plumb. If you're using the bar on a tabletop and someone bumps the desk, the feed recovers instantly without a noticeable shake. One thing that many buyers overlook is the lens ecosystem. Logitech's RightSight works with a 90-degree diagonal field of view, which is wide enough to capture a typical 6-person conference table without having to swing the camera. However, it's not a pan-and-tilt system that can cover an entire auditorium. If you need to capture a large audience of more than 8 people spread across a wide hall, you'll probably need a different solution with interchangeable lenses or a multi-camera setup. For most small to medium meeting rooms, the 90-degree view hits the sweet spot. Menu friction is surprisingly low. The device is managed through the Logitech Sync software, which is a web-based dashboard rather than a clunky desktop app. You can adjust the audio beamforming, set the preferred framing mode, and check firmware updates all in a few clicks. There's no hidden expert mode that you have to unlock. Everything you need for daily operation is front and center. The only drawback is that you can't fine-tune the zoom level beyond the preset wide view, so if you ever need a tighter shot of a single speaker, you'll have to rely on the automatic framing to bring them closer. Battery confidence isn't a factor here because the Rally Bar runs on AC power, which is actually a strength for a conference device. You never have to worry about the bar dying mid-meeting, and the power cable is discreetly hidden behind the mounting bracket. The downside is that